Hi, everyone. I'm Rejoice on Umatta Consulting Podcast today. If today's your first time on our show, please make sure you subscribe to all of our social media channels, especially Spotify. Today, we have the special privilege of speaking with Leigh. Leigh is the national best-selling author of B.O.L.D today, community builder, and also the founder of B.O.L.D Industry Groups. I'd love for her to also introduce herself as she sees fit, and we'll dive right into the questions. So, Leigh, the mic is yours, please.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be on your podcast and talk about being bold and all the things that I've done over the last 5 years, which include founding my company, writing 2 books, and starting a whole bunch of things that I think I missed. Things that I wish I had as I was kind of going through my career. So excited to talk to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here and for your wonderful introduction. Our first question for you: what does it mean to be bold, and why is it so important?
Yeah, it's such an important question. And it's a question I ask people on my own podcast. It's kind of how we start each one. But for me, being bold means really, feeling the fear and doing it anyway, stepping forward, knowing that you will learn regardless, and you'll be able to apply those learnings to the next steps that you take.
Exactly. I like that. Just feeling the fear. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
It feels natural to just step in because you
it
hesitate
does
every time
not.
you.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things, obviously, I wrote Be Bold today really for every individual to understand kind of their beliefs, what they own, their learning and how to apply it to design their life. But definitely learning through my second book, which is called The Bold Leader, is that when you feel that fear, truly that's actually your brain telling you this is important. This is something that you should really focus in on.
Wow, amazing. Let's talk a little bit about the framework.
Okay.
What is the Bold framework, and how did it come about? How did
Yeah.
you discover it?
So the BOLD framework is something I actually created in 2020 when I was trying to figure out my what's next. So in 2020, I ended up getting to a place of really severe burnout that I had no choice but to quit my job. And it was not like me to just do that without a plan or months and months of preparation. And I needed something to follow. I'm a
Hmm.
big fan of acronyms so that I can remember them. That's kind of how I learned in high school too. And I created the BOLD framework, which is believe, own, learn, design. And it
Hmm.
really delves into kind of your beliefs and how they're helping you or how they may be holding you back, or maybe even your beliefs are harming you in some form or fashion. And just to really, dig into those ownership of like what is important, what is yours to own and what is not yours to own. I think I found out I was owning a lot of things that I wasn't supposed to be owning and had like taken on. And then being, in that growth mindset and applying that learning to design your best life. And that's kind of how it came about. I just needed to figure out my what's next, and lots of great frameworks out there, but I ended up creating my own.
Excellent. I love that. I think coming up with your own framework sometimes guides your vision the best.
Hmm.
And I also love the fact that you reflected on 2020. It was such a very interesting time for all of us.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of
Burnout,
unknowns.
yeah, burnout, all of the things that were happening for a reset. I felt like there were so many resets happening. So
Hmm.
it was good that you identified the opportunity to step out of the burnout.
Right. Yeah, I think I had to choose me, which initially felt very, I'll use the word selfish. Like I felt like I shouldn't do this. I need to stick in there, try harder. Why can't I figure it out? It was one of those moments, but I ended up having really to choose me for my health and really all levels of health, my physical health, mental health, emotional, all of it. And it was the best decision I've ever made.
Excellent. Excellent. Love that. How can you use your mindset to reach your goals and achieve success?
Yeah. Well, I think there's multiple ways you can do that. I think for me, what I had to do was maybe unlearn some things. So I was 48 when I set out to do what most people maybe start doing. I don't know. Many people become entrepreneurs maybe earlier in their career. I didn't even think it was a possibility. So
Mm,
I think for my mindset pieces around what I've done over the last 5 years is really just unlearn some things of what it's supposed to look like, right? I
right.
think there's a lot of pressure, I think, for us to have it all figured out or to know your purpose. And
Mhm.
I just wanted a way to move forward, to help others, and to really just find joy in what I was doing. And that's really was a big piece of my mindset shift, was really unlearning some things, maybe of like what it was supposed to look like or how I
Mm.
was supposed to do it based on external information or individuals, or even just, just the culture of how I was raised of, you stay in corporate, you are there for many, many years, and then you end up retiring, and
Right.
that's what life looks like, right? And
Yes.
I kind of crossed that out and started to write my own definition, but at 48.
Which is great, from my standpoint, because I feel like redefining success is something a lot of people are considering right now.
Hmm.
People are not staying in one company anymore. You see resumes with people moving 14 jobs, locations, 10.
Right.
That was not the norm 10
No,
years
you used to have to
ago,
explain it or be prepared, or, if you
right?
had a gap, you had to be ready for that question. And now it's
Like,
definitely more normal. And I'm loving the idea of having a portfolio career and really thinking about how to do that. I think I was initially actually doing that in my corporate career, different experiences, different, because I have a healthcare background and education background and innovation and implementation roles. Like I've had a lot of different roles, and I used to call them like the strata. Like if you look at
hmm,
a rock on the side, like the strata of my experience. And I really think that's what a portfolio career is. It's just different levels of learning, and then you can apply them in so many different ways.
excellent, excellent. So, let's get into your upcoming book. I know you gave
Mhm.
us a little bit of a highlight when you were speaking. What was the inspiration behind your upcoming book,
Yeah.
The
So,
Bold
yeah.
Leader?
Yeah, so the first book, really, Be Bold Today, is really for the individual to kind of move through. You can also use it with teams, you can use it with organizations, but it starts with you as an individual, as a member of a team or a leader of a team. And really, the second book takes that foundational understanding. We review in brief the bold framework, but it's really about being the bold leader, leading yourself and leading others. What I particularly wanted to understand is what holds people back from taking that bold step, from moving through the fear, like I talked about, doing the thing that isn't guaranteed. And I think what I find in, the thousands of women that I've worked with over the last 5 years is that fear is one of the biggest things
Yes,
that holds us back. And so I
yeah.
really wanted to get into like what's happening up there between our ears, right? Yeah. So we get into like the neuroscience of how our brain works and how it
Mhm.
speaks to us, as well as looking at how we measure success, and really like as you said earlier, redefining success by the measures of boldness or measures of risk versus just your typical, dashboard, key indicators. I think it's important for us to come up with some new measures. So it really digs into how we apply the framework organizationally as a leader, and then understanding when things get uncomfortable, it's not always a stop sign, right? It's an indicator that this is important. Like it could be the difficult conversation that you have to have as a leader. It could be, becoming more vulnerable as a leader and realizing that that makes you human, and that's a good thing. So we really do move through those, as well as I share, some of the tools that I used in my first 5 years in my consulting model and how organizations have used those.
Excellent, excellent. Leah, permit me to ask a follow-up question based on
Sure.
what you said. Do you feel like some of the fear and hesitation could be fear of judgment of others?
Oh, 100%. That is definitely something that we all may have
Mhm.
come up into our conscious when we're doing something different, or advocating for ourselves, or we're saying no, and they expect us to say yes, right? We're standing in our value, we're being authentic, meaning
Mhm.
aligned with who we are and aligned with our values. And that oftentimes means the possibility of not being
Right.
understood, right? And I think a lot of my career, I felt like I had to explain myself, or I thought it was like everyone around me, their role was to understand kind of I was coming from a good place, or I was doing this for this reason. And really, I think it's really important for anyone to understand. They need to understand themselves first, and then
Right.
how to navigate the world. So I think that's just an important piece of, as we grow and evolve and kind of we're in the messiness of life, is just learning from it,
Right.
and feeling like the things that you're feeling, and knowing that comparing yourself to others or being judged by others is always a possibility, but it shouldn't be something that really makes you, act a certain way or do a certain thing. It should never be something that comes into, the thought process of do or don't. That's something that just exists. And the more you can really understand that, as long as you're aligned with who you are and your values, and you're doing, good, and you're doing the things that, bring you joy, it doesn't matter what other people think, or, maybe you're doing it slower or faster too. I
Right.
think there's a comparison thing too as well.
Exactly. You can't please everyone in this world.
Don't
Someone will
try.
find
Don't
something to
try.
say.
Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
Fantastically. So, what would listeners discover in the book? What are some things that are magical you want to share?
Yeah, so I talk about several things. Obviously, I kind of give a preview of how to apply the bold framework to your team. What beliefs does your team have? What are you owning and as a team, not owning, learning, application, and then developing your team into the successful team that you want it to be, as well as the metrics. But we also get into kind of the things, the tools, the resources that I've used. And one of them is the D90. So the D means designed, and the 90 is 90 days. So I really talk about the strategic sprints that organizations can do to
Mhm.
really trial some things, but give it enough time to be trialed, because I think sometimes we try to innovate and we don't let it simmer enough to actually see if it lasts. I think the other thing that I get into, that I spoke about just a little bit earlier, but really talking about specific metrics that you can use when measuring success as a team, or you can add to your dashboard of the normal, KPIs, of course, revenue and engagement and timing. And those are all things that we see on a dashboard. But, how many things have we done that we considered risky or had a risk over the last year? And what does that look like? Because when there's risk, there's ultimately change or innovation.
Yes.
Something's going to be different associated with that. So that's a example of a measure that I want people to understand. And I think I go further into kind of maybe some of the misunderstandings of what boldness is.
Right.
And people realizing that it's not just taking risk for risk's sake. It's actually doing something different because you
Right.
want a different result, or you want a
Right.
better result. I think sometimes there's complacency
Right.
that can happen in organizations, and that you usually lose good leaders then as well,
Hmm.
because that most leaders want to evolve, change, become,
Right.
and do something at the next level. And so that was something that I think I struggled with in my career, because I would reach that milestone or get that promotion or do that thing, and then I was just looking for the next, right?
Mm.
And so I think I want people to understand it is not about the finish line. It is really about what's happening right now in the middle, when it's messy or not messy, or when it's unknown or known. Like, this is it. Like, this is it. This is what we really are living for, is the moment. And I think sometimes we lose that in organizations, because we get into a habit of just, this is how I do, and this is what we've
Right.
always done.
I can 100% agree with you, and I can relate to what you're describing as an HR professional.
Yeah.
Seeing staff being complacent in where they are. I also love the idea that you were able to describe risk assessment being part
Hmm.
of being bold. Typically when you think about someone being bold, you think about personality,
Hmm.
their ability to speak up,
Right.
confidence, and so forth. But I also like the way you sort of broke it down in your book regarding innovation, which is constantly changing. So
Right.
you need people to be bold in this world.
Yeah, I mean, the world is changing every day, whether it's AI or how we staff or doing things virtually versus in person.
Right.
I think we need to also be in that space. And I don't mean change yourself, to become something. I mean, understand who you are,
Right.
align yourself with what is the most authentic for you and your role in your career. And then as a leader, really understanding that risk is part of your
Mhm.
success. And again, I think defining that pragmatically is really, really important. And I think that's one of the biggest myths about being bold, is that you just jump and you don't look and you just do it. And it's way more thoughtful
Yes,
than that.
very fantastic. I agree with you. So let's connect it to leaders in
Hmm.
corporations and etc. What are ways for us to recognize if a person or oneself is in alignment or possibly going out of alignment to become burned out?
Yeah.
environment or work situations?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what I did is I ignored all the signs. And then I just got to a point of just being at the very severe end of burnout, meaning emotionally depleted, physically, I wasn't moving. I gained a lot of weight. I'd gotten healthy before the role, and now that I gained it all back, like everything that I had worked really hard to get to, I kind of let slide because the only thing that I prioritized was my role. So signs for me that were coming up was, I was working way too long and
Yeah.
way too many days. Like a 12-hour day here or there may happen as a senior leader, but I think I was doing that as a regular day. And I
Right.
think the other thing is that, from a scheduling perspective, I saw being overscheduled, which is
Mhm.
what it was, or being, back to back was not a badge of honor, but was expected and was something that
Right.
you did as a senior leader
Privilege.
and I was
Yeah.
proud of. Yeah, exactly. It was a privilege. And
Yeah.
so I did that too much. And those are two quick indicators, but I think I had personal indicators, around my health or, reactivity or feeling extremely tired. My
Right.
sleep was off. I mean, towards the end, I was only sleeping 2 to 3 hours a day.
Wow.
And, so for me, those were all big signs that I was burning out, but we didn't talk about it in 2020. We really didn't. Like, we didn't
No.
even use those terms. I'm so glad. I think that is a positive that came out of that year, is like people were feeling that and we had to do some things. The thing now is 5 years later, I do see organizations and individuals slipping back
Yes.
into what we did or how we operated. And I think one of the greatest things that we realized is like coming together, and the collective whole was
Right.
extremely powerful during that time. And I just think it's important for us not to lose that in 2025 and beyond.
I agree. I definitely agree. A lot of times senior leaders, when we talk about things that could potentially decline productivity, decline, wellness at work, it stems from burnout and
Yeah.
extensive working and not taking some time for yourself and for your
Yeah.
family.
Yeah, and I kept doing the same things that had worked in the past, which was take on more responsibility, do
Right.
more work. I was
Right.
like, it worked in the past, and I think I just got to a point of saturation
Right.
and just a human possibility of being able to work, that I just couldn't do it. And it was also very frustrating for me because I thought, why couldn't I figure it out? What was wrong with me? Like, what was,
Right.
I know how to, work in large organizations. I think that's really, really important for people to realize, is like, you're still really good at your job.
Yes. Yes.
It doesn't mean like you go down.
Yes.
Potentially, like in my case, I know I took on so much that I couldn't be at the level that I was, but I was still doing an incredible job and making things happen. But it
Right.
was taking its toll over and over and over, which I wasn't noticing. But what's interesting is that everyone else around me was noticing, my family, my
Right.
friends. And when I said that I was burnt out and was making this big change, they were happy for me because
Yes.
they saw it before I
Yes.
did.
Yes. Which is awesome.
Yeah.
No. And I'm glad you did take the leap of faith. And we're going to get into that as well. You spent 20 years in corporate
Mhm.
America before launching the Bold Industry Group.
Mhm.
What was the pivoting? I think you sort of have already described that, but was there a specific moment that you decided that this was going to be the last straw and you're going to step out of your corporate career?
Yeah, there was definitely kind of, I think of like, you can't do this anymore moment,
Right.
right? And for me, I was in a very stressful meeting and I came out of the meeting and it was just, nothing out of the norm of stressful with an organization. Like, there's a disagreement, someone doesn't agree with what you did or how you, responded, or, it could be any of those moments. Mine particularly was just around, I took action on something and I knew it was the right thing to do from an ethical and moral perspective. And I, just had one of those meetings where I had to like stand up for myself and say
Right.
why I did it. And it didn't make everybody around me happy. And that's okay if I did the right thing. That's okay if like everyone's not happy about it. But I
Yeah.
think what happened in that meeting, and it ended fine and, moving forward, but it was stressful. And in
Right.
addition to not sleeping and not eating and not moving and just having so much on my plate, I think it was just beginning to take a toll. I went in to kind of just refresh myself, wash my hands, and I looked in the mirror and my eye had burst. from
Wow.
the stress in the meeting. And I was like, it is looking at me straight in my
Yes.
face, right?
The signs are there.
Yeah. So I think that truly was kind of the moment for me that I knew I couldn't keep doing what I'd been doing. It still took me 2 months from that point in time to make the decision, but
Right.
it was like, okay, I know I can't keep doing this.
Gotcha. Understood.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Too young, too life's too precious. Like it was just
You.
yeah, like, it's just I don't it's kind of like that, it was almost like that shake, right? Of like, you can't keep doing this. This isn't gonna work. You can't work your way out of it.
Right. Right. And I think that is where purpose comes in.
Mhm.
And I'm so happy you answered it that way because it leads us to our last question for you.
Okay.
When you reflect on the early days with Bold Industries, what was the biggest challenge you faced in building a purpose driven business as yours?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of pressure, and I think this is for a lot of generations, but I think there was a lot of pressure to have it all figured out from the get go, right? This is
Yeah.
my 1 year plan, my 3 year plan, my 5 year plan. Like that's just how I'd been raised and how I grew up in the corporate world. Like
Right.
you have every step figured out. You got your Gantt chart, you have your strategic plan, you have your metrics, your KPI, everything's already laid out for you. And I had to relearn that it
Mm.
really is okay not to have it all figured out. And what I mean is, I don't mean just take a leap without thinking about it or being pragmatic, right? I mean, really, if you go through the activities in either of the books, you're going to start to understand your values better and understand if you're out of alignment. So I think for me, the biggest learning as I created this purpose filled organization that has grown and
Yeah.
started new things and ended something, like you go along the way. You're not going to keep doing potentially everything that you try, but I think you learn along the way, and it is just something that you don't have to have every step figured out.
Right.
You just really sometimes just need to start.
Exactly. Start from where you are
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and enjoy life.
Yeah.
I like that you
It's
you
way
and
too short for us to be
too short.
miserable. Yeah, and I think, I learned that early in my life, as I lost my brother when I was 6 and he was 11, and so I think, from the standpoint I'd always known that, but I think for me, I kinda lost a little bit of that because it just became my work was my life, and if you
Right.
asked me what I did for fun, I couldn't answer it. So, like, I'll say to your listeners, if you can't answer this question, "What do you do for fun?"
Yes.
and all you think about is, I work a lot and, or anything related to your work comes in as your answer, you may need to just take a pause, take a day off,
Mhm.
and maybe kind of settle into what do I want to learn more about? Who do I want to see or who haven't I talked to, in my relationships? Like, take a pause
Yeah.
and kind of, reset yourself.
I love that advice, Lee, that you offered right now, because especially for us type A types of people in corporate America,
Yeah,
you get stuck in there and
big
your
time.
brain is wired for productivity and goals and metrics.
It's what you're
And
rewarded for, right?
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes. And you forget to live. You forget to start a family. You forget to have kids, enjoy your kids. You
Play
forget
with
to
the
spend
dog,
time.
take that
You
walk,
know?
take the vacation. Yeah, like, they don't have to be like the big, trip to Fiji or something that's
Yes.
always been on your bucket list, but I would say get that planned
Right.
and start saving or whatever you need to do, and, like, maybe a first step to that big trip or that thing you wanna do is just maybe taking a class or talking to someone who went there or, learning the language or potentially, like I said, it could be the small things, like, if you say, "I wanna get healthy," like,
Right.
defining what healthy looks like for you, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, and I think a big part of being healthy is having some space between your work and your life, your personal life. So I think, these are little things that you can just start today. If you're working 12 hours a day every day, are you doing that because someone told you you have to, or are you doing that because you took it on, right?
Right.
And so what happens if you leave at 5? Guess what? The world keeps spinning,
Right.
and you pick it back up in the morning, but you feel a whole lot better when you leave at 5 or 6 instead of 9 or 10.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lee. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, talking about all the things concerning Be Bold today and also your nuggets from corporate America. Do you have last minute advice or suggestions for our listeners before we close today?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just start, right? Like start, don't judge yourself. Like we talked about being judged by others or maybe comparing ourselves to others. Don't judge yourself because sometimes we're our hardest critics on ourselves. Just start. Take that step, take that moment to plan. And like I said, if maybe that's a half day on a Friday or maybe it's a Saturday morning or whatever you need to just say kind of am I in alignment with my values? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, start really working towards that. And like I said, with the Be Bold today, really it goes through, it's like every chapter is a workshop. So you can really go through the entire process. And with the Bold Leader, which you can pre-order, you can really learn how to, apply it to your team and the leaderships that you have within organizations. So basically the bottom line is just start.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Leigh. That was awesome. Be bold today. Start. Make time for yourself and enjoy your life as you have it. So appreciate it. For everyone else listening, thank you for listening to us and make sure to subscribe. Also, check out Leigh's book, which is on Amazon. I'm sure you'll find it there and her upcoming book. And until next time, take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.